Tesla licensing seems to be an expanding opportunity. We've recently had the BP deal. How important was this deal, and what does it signify for you moving forward for Tesla?
Oh, you're not going to like this answer. I mean, I'm not unhappy, but I'm not, completely blown away by this BP deal. I understand that people are starving for good news, and this was a good news. There's no doubt it was a good news, but I think it's completely insignificant. First of all, 100 million is a bleep, right? It's not 100 million right into the pocket because there's hardware to be delivered. So there may be a good margin on it, but however it is, it's not going to be a huge amount. The second point is that, yes, it is a capitulation of the oil industry towards Tesla. Wonderful. No doubt about it. It's not the first one, having all these regulatory credits for years now. But the second, the point is that yes, people that are currently going to fill up their gas cars will now see these BP labeled superchargers in a corner. So yeah, there is some psychological effect to it. The third one is this allows BP to keep their store owners happy. You have to know that gas stations make very, very, very little money on the gas itself. They sell lottery tickets because if there's a winner, they get a cut from the win. But the main income for them is the groceries and candies and car accessories that they sell. So by having some Tesla superchargers, they hope that they have the Tesla drivers there for the 10 minutes to use the restroom, stroll through the shop, buy a lottery ticket, and buy some candy or whatever, salami or whatever they want. So that is a concession to their store owners. You have to know that the price of gas stations has been reduced a lot. In my day job of immigration, I remember in 2014 and 15, I did quite a lot of E2 investors that came to the United States by purchasing a gas station. And the prices for them were quite high given for profitability because it was considered a steady business. So the multiplier on either profitability or revenue was higher than the average grocery store, whatever, because this was considered to be, the business that would just last forever, small income, but forever. That has changed. That perception had changed thanks to Tesla and thanks to EVs. So by giving these store owners EV superchargers, they hope to get some goodwill back because their store owners are rightly so unhappy about their investments. So that's the third point. Now, the fourth point is me, selfish little me. Would I, as a Tesla user and supercharger user, prefer going to a gas station to fill up? In no way. If I would have in the same city the space in front of a Target store or in front of, Main Street or at a gas station, the gas station would be the last point where I would bring my Tesla to charge just because it stinks. It's usually dirty. It's all these other cars. So that's the last thing. Now, would I be on a road trip where there is no supercharger close and this is the only one? Of course, I'd use it. But that problem has been solved by Tesla. It may be that some other new better locations are now coming up with this BP deal. Good. But just the whole subject for me is not a big deal. Now, last and good point, it will probably be the incentive that was needed to bring the other gas station owners to Tesla as well. The Arcos, the Shells, the whatever. The fact is that Tesla has won the charging war. I think this morning Subaru has also joined the Tesla charging network. So Tesla has won the charging war. There's no doubt about it in North America. Europe is another subject. China is another subject, but in North America. So in North America, we may as well capitalize on it. And this BP is one of many ways to capitalize on it.
So we've seen Tesla growing their charging network by around 30% per year. With deals like this with BP, do you think this could increase the charging network growth over the forthcoming years?
Well, I don't think the growth will be maintained actually at 30% because I think we're starting really to see a good coverage. Now, the thing obviously also is more cars on Tesla's charging standard, more chargers are needed. That's just a fact. I actually hardly have to wait. We're road tripping quite a lot. Happens sometimes on Thanksgiving or Labor Day when lots of people are on the road that you get to a supercharging station where you have to wait a couple of minutes before you can be docked on. But it's really rare. So again, this is an alternative, but it is, in my view, a small alternative compared to what Tesla is building out themselves. nice to have, sure.
I imagine you still remain bullish on Tesla licensing FSD. When do you think we could see progress here? And which OEM do you think could be the first mover?
I do. I remain very bullish on FSD licensing. I actually remain bullish on 4 topics of licensing. The one is obviously FSD. That comes with the operating system, meaning the tablet, the sensors, all that. The second is the infotainment. I think the way Tesla has built up the infotainment is an Apple Store or a Google Store, however you want to call that. The third one is sound. I mean, I don't know whether you've ever sat in a Tesla and put the sound on. I don't believe that anybody has mastered sound the way Tesla has. And then the big one is electric powertrains. So I'm not talking about the batteries. They're all producing batteries now. It's about the engine turning these batteries into car power. So those 4, in my view, can all be monetized and can all be licensed. Now, I've not discovered any OEM that has mastered software. We just had 2-3 days ago the announcement that Porsche is one of the still profitable OEMs, has now signed a deal with Google for their CarPlay. I mean, be it what it is, but Google CarPlay is in no way comparable to what Tesla has as operating system, as, maps and whatever. So they will all come around. Now, does it mean they will all license from Tesla? By far not. But like in the good old days, Intel Inside was for PCs the most important and highest standard. Tesla Inside will be the highest standard for those that subscribe to Tesla, and a profitable business. Now, FSD is obviously the ground jewel of all that. First of all, there's all the data. Second, so that there's, dojo revenue just for the data complexity and measure on it. But that also means that full self-driving war has won. Now, contrary to a lot, I don't think Tesla will be the only provider. If you follow closely the Chinese market, and in particularly Xiaopeng, they are currently developing something comparable. Is it to the standard of Tesla? Not what I've seen. But again, I'm not in China, not sitting in those cars. But they are certainly ahead of time. Do remember there was a lawsuit. I think they settled that when Xiaopeng had acquired illegally documents from Tesla. And there's obviously comma. There are lots of initiatives on the way for FSD solving. For me, the gold standard, no doubt, and crown jewel is FSD. We're getting close to it. The way Tesla solves it is revolutionary compared to everybody else, because it means having solved vision, whatever it is, can see and can process what it sees to take the right decision in a fraction of a second. This is just, mind-boggling if you think about it. I'm convinced nobody else is where Tesla is, just because they've come a long way and have put the years and the sweat into it. But once we're there, FSD will be licensable. And my big bet on who would take it first has always been Ford. Now, Ford is currently in a strange position because their concession to UAW is going to cost them a lot of money over the next 4 years. There have been rumors now that Jim Farley, who has been a close ally to Tesla, who has been the first one to adopt the chargers, may have lost some of his power within Ford, that Bill Ford is coming back there. And so Ford may be currently going through a shift that puts my theory in question. I was convinced it would be Ford cutting down the $12 billion that they had set aside, earmarked for EV, now putting that off the shelf, was for me a sign that, okay, we've given up. We're not building cars anymore at $30, $40, $50, $60,000 of loss. We're going to wait for Tesla to be ready to license EV battery trains and FSD, and then take the whole bundle from them and wrap the Ford car around it, like we currently buy so much from other tier 1 to tier 6 providers, and we just, assemble the rest of it. That was my theory up to this UAW deal. Now, given the details of the UAW deal, given their concessions to not only shelve those $12 billion, but throw another $8 billion into plans that were redundant. That's why they were on that list, right? And now suddenly doing it puts a doubt over my theory. If it is not Ford, I do believe it could actually be Toyota. Toyota has always been good at finding the right and most efficient supplier. If you're looking for the right and most efficient supplier, well, it could very well be Tesla. They have gotten so much delay. If they can finally get the batteries where they want them to be. They still don't have the software for that. They still don't have the operating system for an EV. They could be the ones. In Europe, one hope I had was Volkswagen, but given how Volkswagen currently delays entering the North American standard. Remember, there was all the Volkswagen scandal, then came to Electrify America, and now, having to give that up and walk the walk to the Tesla headquarters. That's a tough one. So while Volkswagen is losing with their CARIAD software so much money and time, they should be the ideal candidate to go to Tesla and make a licensing deal. I do believe they're sitting too much on their high horse. So it could be Mercedes. Mercedes is trying on their own. I don't like what they're doing. It's by far not where Tesla is. But if they want to get back to a profitability that they knew with ICE cars, that may be the way they go. So there's quite a lot of speculation. Again, my number one was Ford. Now with a cloud of doubt. Number two is Toyota. Number three is Mercedes.
So it's a good segue onto the fact that a wide range of the EV community thinks that the shift from ICE to EV will be an existential threat for some of these legacy auto companies. Do you think licensing Tesla's FSD could be a massive lifeline for these companies to earn some high margin opportunity and a crucial time, which is just another further Tesla tailwind?
Yeah, I agree with you that actually that will allow them to survive. And contrary to Apple in the time, who never wanted to license and never did license, so opened the doors to Android and all these other providers jumping on the Android train, Elon has always made it very clear that he wants the EVs to be able to license it from Tesla. Elon is a strange mix of somebody saving humanity, yet a fierce warrior for X, for SpaceX, and for Tesla. So I sometimes have the feeling that, he would do something even if it's not profitable for Tesla, just because it further enhances the path to a sustainable future. I mean, that's what he did with X, right? He purchased X knowing darn well it was worth half of what he paid for it, just because he considered it was an important enough cause. So if I would be OEM, in the critically bad situation they currently are, I would do anything to make friends with Elon and explain to Elon in what a situation I am today, how the situation could improve if only Tesla would license whatever possible at good enough prices. If it would be done for these OEMs to have to overpay, which would be obviously good for us shareholders, no doubt about it, that may not solve the problem. And I just do believe all the time that Elon rather has everybody surviving with good EVs, safe cars, safety is one of his main subjects, clean cars, of course, than having been the straw that makes all these OEMs finally capitulate and disappear. I'm a big proponent of these licensing, and I still do believe that is going to help them survive. Those that have the humility and the understanding that they will have to come to Tesla to get it done.
You've mentioned Ford a few times. Ford has recently had its rating upgraded by the S&P.
Oh.
Were you expecting this? And what are your thoughts on this?
No, I didn't expect this at all. And I didn't expect it right now. Now, just to put those breadcrumbs together, which it drives me crazy. It drives me insane. You have Ford, who a couple of weeks ago still had a project of putting $12 billion into EVs, had built up the Mach-E, had built up the F-150 Lightning. You may like these cars or not, but they're on the street and they're selling. They're selling slowly with a lot of inventory at a high cost, but they made the effort. Then you had this UAW strike. Initially, you had a lot of people saying, okay, this is actually good for them because they have so much inventory. This will give them a couple of weeks of air to get rid of their inventory. Well, be it. And they're actually still in a time where you can sell cars at quite a high price. I mean, it's incredible how good those car prices still maintain given the interest rates, whatever. But there's just so much natural demand still for, people having the end of their leases, needing a new car, whatever. So they're in sort of a protected bubble for a couple more short months. Now, Ford has always been the least financially stable in terms of rating. Rating means you are assessing the creditworthiness. Would you lend money to these people? And how likely it is that this money comes back with the interest and whatever. And so Ford was always junk rated for a long time. Now, 2 months ago, Moody's put it from a low junk rating to the highest junk rating, but still junk. So I ignored that because it was what it was. Now comes the UAW deal. Now, let me just recall that the UAW deal had two consequences. $8 billion are now going to be allocated into companies, into sites that were actually earmarked to be reduced or even closed. Now, these are going to be maintained open and even expanded. And $12 billion were on the shelf for EVs and now taken off the shelf until nowhere to go. So you have these two things that are clearly setting Ford back. Sure, you have between the 12 and the 8, $4 billion that are suddenly on paper available. But other than that, it's just bad decision over bad decision. And immediately S&P followed up by upgrading Ford. Now, what does that mean? It upgraded it from the highest junk rating to the lowest investment grade rating. You have to know that Fitch, which is the smallest and the most easy to influence rating agency among the three, had already had them on investment grade. So Ford now suddenly, 6 months after a situation where they were junk for everybody, has 2 investment grade ratings, which allows institutional investors who have that criteria that they can only lend money or invest their money to companies that have 2 investment grade ratings, they can suddenly invest into Ford. Now, yes, this gives a lifeline to Ford, no doubt about it, but at the same time, it's just not deserved. This is crazy. And Ford is now more or less at the same rating than Tesla is, which is much stronger position. No debt, 26 billion of cash, while Ford is living on the straw, right? That's just where it is. And actually the stock price shows it very well. This is one of those moments. You have the stock price, which for the first time in a long, long time, of Ford came below $10. It was yesterday at $9.75, which is, haven't been seen for ages. I mean, it's a stock price that hasn't moved for 30 years. And now it's really broken this strong support. So while the stock people know it, the rating people obviously are playing other games.